what if Xerox never decided to pursue the graphical interface? Or Thomas Edison found a different trade? What if Tim Berners-Lee never got the funding to develop the World Wide Web? Would our world be different? Would we be further behind? History seems to tell us things wouldn't be so different. Whenever there's a major breakthrough, there's usually others on the same path. Maybe a bit behind, maybe not behind at all. Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz both invented calculus around 1684. Charles Darwin proposed the theory of evolution by natural selection, but Alfred Russel Wallace had pretty much the same idea at pretty much the same time. And Alexander Graham Bell and Elisha Gray filed patents for the telephone on the same day. We call this multiple discovery, the same innovation emerging from different places. Science and invention is riddled with it, but it can also happen in the arts. In film, for instance, we had 3 Coco Chanel movies released within 9 months of each other. Around 1999, we had a quartet of sci-fi movies about artificial reality. Even Charlie Kaufman's unusually original film, Synecdoche, New York, bears an uncanny resemblance to Tom McCarthy's novel, Remainder. Both are the stories of men who suddenly become wealthy and start recreating moments of their lives, even going so far as to recreate the recreations. And actually, the video you're watching, was written just before The New Yorker published a Malcolm Gladwell story about Apple, Xerox, and the nature of innovation. We're all building with the same materials. Sometimes by coincidence we get similar results, but sometimes innovations just seem inevitable. Thanks to iStockPhoto for contributing footage to this episode. Check them out at iStockPhoto.com. The genes in our bodies can be traced back over 3.5 billion years to a single organism, LUCA, the last universal common ancestor. As LUCA reproduced, its genes copied and copied and copied and copied. Sometimes with mistakes, they transformed. Over time, this produced every one of the billions of species of life on Earth. Some of these adopted sexual reproduction, combining the genes of individuals, and altogether, the best adapted life forms prospered. This is evolution. Copy, transform, and combine. And culture evolves in a similar way, but the elements aren't genes, they're memes, ideas, behaviors, skills. Memes are copied, transformed, and combined. And the dominant ideas of our time are the memes that spread the most. This is social evolution. Copy, transform, and combine. It's who we are, it's how we live, and of course, it's how we create. Our new ideas evolve from the old ones. But our system of law doesn't acknowledge the derivative nature of creativity. Instead, ideas are regarded as property, as unique and original lots with distinct boundaries. But ideas aren't so tidy. They're layered, they're interwoven, they're tangled. And when the system conflicts with the reality, the system starts to fail. For almost our entire history, ideas were free. The works of Shakespeare, Gutenberg, and Rembrandt could be openly copied and built upon. But the growing dominance of the market economy, where the products of our intellectual labors are bought and sold, produced an unfortunate side effect. Let's say a guy invents a better light bulb. His price needs to cover not just the manufacturing cost, but also the cost of inventing the thing in the first place. Now let's say a competitor starts manufacturing a competing copy. The competitor doesn't need to cover those development costs, so his version can be cheaper. The bottom line, original creations can't compete with the price of copies. In the United States, the introduction of copyrights and patents was intended to address this imbalance. Copyrights covered media, patents covered inventions. Both aim to encourage the creation and proliferation of new ideas by providing a brief and limited period of exclusivity, a period where no one else could copy your work. This gave creators a window in which to cover their investments and earn a profit. After that, their work entered the public domain, where it could spread far and wide and be freely built upon. And it was this that was the goal, a robust public domain, an affordable body of ideas, products, arts, and entertainment available to all. The core belief was in the common good, what would benefit everyone. But over time, the influence of the market transformed this principle beyond recognition. Influential thinkers proposed that ideas are a form of property, and this conviction would eventually yield a new term, intellectual property. This was a meme that would multiply wildly, thanks in part to a quirk of human psychology known as loss aversion. Simply put, we hate losing what we've got. People tend to place a much higher value on losses than on gains, so the gains we get from copying the work of others don't make a big impression. But when it's our ideas being copied, we perceive this as a loss and we get territorial. For instance, Disney made extensive use of the public domain. Stories like Snow White, Pinocchio, and Alice in Wonderland were all taken from the public domain. But when it came time for the copyright of Disney's early films to expire, they lobbied to have the term of copyright extended. Artist Shepard Fairey has frequently used existing art in his work. This practice came to a head when he was sued by the Associated Press for basing his famous Obama Hope poster on their photo. Nonetheless, when it was his imagery used in a piece by Baxter Orr, Fairey threatened to sue. And lastly, Steve Jobs was sometimes boastful about Apple's history of copying.
We have, always been shameless about stealing great ideas.
But he harbored deep grudges against those who dared to copy Apple. I'm going to destroy Android because it's a stolen product. I'm willing to go thermonuclear war on this. When we copy, we justify it. When others copy, we vilify it. Most of us have no problem with copying, as long as we're the ones doing it. So with a blind eye toward our own mimicry and propelled by faith in markets and ownership, intellectual property swelled beyond its original scope, with broader interpretations of existing laws, new legislation, new realms of coverage, and alluring rewards. In 1981, George Harrison lost a $1.5 million case for subconsciously copying the doo-wop hit He's So Fine in his ballad, My Sweet Lord.
I really want to know you. Really want to go with you. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna make it mine. Be the envy of
Prior to this, plenty of songs sounded much more like other songs without ending up in court. Ray Charles created the prototype for soul music when he based I Got a Woman on the gospel song It Must Be Jesus.
There's a man
Be Jesus.
going around
Be Jesus.
taking names.
Be Jesus.
Oh Lord,
Say I got a woman way over town, good to me. Oh yeah, she give me money.
Starting in the late 90s, a series of new copyright laws and regulations began to be introduced, and many more are in the works. The most ambitious in scope are trade agreements. Because these are treaties and not laws, they can be negotiated in secret, with no public input and no congressional approval. In 2011, ACTA was signed by President Obama, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, currently being written in secret, aims to spread even stronger US-style protections around the world. Of course, when the United States itself was a developing economy, it refused to sign treaties and had no protection for foreign creators. Charles Dickens famously complained about America's bustling book piracy market, calling it a horrible thing that scoundrel booksellers should grow rich. Patent coverage made the leap from physical inventions to virtual ones, most notably software. But this is not a natural transition. A patent is a blueprint for how to make an invention. Software patents are more like a loose description of what something would be like if it actually was invented. And software patents are written in the broadest possible language to get the broadest possible protection. The vagueness of these terms can sometimes reach absurd levels. For example, information manufacturing machine, which covers anything computer-like, or material object, which covers pretty much anything. The fuzziness of software patents boundaries has turned the smartphone industry into one giant turf war. 62% of all patent lawsuits are now over software. The estimated wealth lost is $500 billion. The expanding reach of intellectual property has introduced more and more possibilities for opportunistic litigation, suing to make a buck. Two new species evolved whose entire business model is lawsuits: sample trolls and patent trolls. These are corporations that don't actually produce anything. They acquire a library of intellectual property rights, then litigate to earn profits. And because legal defense is hundreds of thousands of dollars in copyright cases and millions in patents, their targets are usually highly motivated to settle out of court. The most famous sample troll is Bridgeport Music, which has filed hundreds of lawsuits. In 2005, they scored an influential court decision over this 2-second sample. That's it. And not only was the sample short, it was virtually unrecognizable. This verdict essentially rendered any kind of sampling, no matter how small, infringing. The sample-heavy musical collages of hip-hop's golden age are now impossibly expensive to create. Now, patent trolls are most common back in that troubled realm of software. And perhaps the most inexplicable case is that of Paul Allen. He's one of the founders of Microsoft, he's a billionaire, he's an esteemed philanthropist who's pledged to give away much of his fortune, and he claims basic web features like related links, alerts, and recommendations were invented by his long-defunct company. So the self-proclaimed Idea Man sued pretty much all of Silicon Valley in 2010, and he did this despite no lack of fame or fortune. So to recap, the full picture looks like this. We believe that ideas are property, and we're excessively territorial when we feel that property belongs to us. Our laws then indulge this bias with ever-broadening protections and massive rewards. Meanwhile, huge legal fees encourage defendants to pay up and settle out of court. It's a discouraging scenario, and it begs the question, what now? The belief in intellectual property has grown so dominant, it's pushed the original intent of copyrights and patents out of the public consciousness. But that original purpose is still right there in plain sight. The Copyright Act of 1790 is entitled An Act for the Encouragement of Learning. The Patent Act is to promote the progress of useful arts. The exclusive rights these acts introduced were a compromise for a greater purpose. The intent was to better the lives of everyone by incentivizing creativity and producing a rich public domain, a shared pool of knowledge open to all. But exclusive rights themselves came to be considered the point, so they were strengthened and expanded. And the result hasn't been more progress or more learning, it's been more squabbling and more abuse. We live in an age with daunting problems. We need the best ideas possible, we need them now, we need them to spread fast. The common good is a meme that was overwhelmed by intellectual property. It needs to spread again. If the meme prospers, our laws, our norms, our society, they all transform. That's social evolution, and it's not up to governments, or corporations, or lawyers. It's up to us.
that a dark-haired girl shows up at the door of the protagonist and tells him that his world is delusional.
Hello, Neil.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present. Deja vu.
What did you just say?
Nothing, just had a little deja vu. Jiu-jitsu. I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu.
I think you're bugged.
First, let's get rid of the bug in your head.
Jesus Christ, that thing's real!
You're not here, neither am I. You're strapped into an implant chair, and I'm monitoring you from the psychoprobe console.
We're inside a computer program.
Is it really so hard to believe?
Swallow this. It's a symbol of your desire to return to reality.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
If you'd really like to know, he went that quick.
Who did?
The white rat.
He did?
The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix.
It's an illusion. Dreams.
The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world.
I deny this reality. The reality is a computation matrix.
In order to change a human being into this.
No. I have these memories from my life.
奥さんも娘も離婚も浮気も全部偽物の記憶で夢のようなものなんです。
None of them happened.
This will feel a little weird.
You and I have unfinished business.
Baby, you ain't kidding.
私とやりたいんだ。そうなんですよ。これでもまだ私を。There's a nail in the door and there's glass on the lawn. Tacks on the floor and the TV is on. And I always sleep with my guns when you're gone. There's a blade by the bed.
When I was little, my father was famous. He was the greatest samurai in the empire, and he was the shogun's decapitator.
And so, Blondie?
It's your baby.
Here, got any change, mate? And the best of British luck to you, too.
I could move a little bit. My feet.
Wiggle your big toe. Wiggle your big toe. Wiggle your big toe.
Ray. I'm sorry, bud. That was rude of me, wasn't it?
Vincent. Now you should listen to this, because this concerns you.
Now you gotta listen to this, man, because this concerns you, all right?
Who's the bride?
Don't be a...
There are some dudes in the bar with busted heads and broken jaws. What hit them? Chantana! There are some pimps in their graves who blew those pimps away. Chantana! There's a girl that's so fine with stars in her eyes.